This is the Global Economic Commodities Scrap Metal and Recycling Report by our Bentley Roll-Off Trailers and Gondola Trailer Scrap Haulers, April 25th, 2022. U.S. weekly crude steel production rose to 1.766 million tons, still below last year. This was on a good economy, but imports are getting cheaper and taking market share. The U.S. dollar index, which is the U.S. dollar versus other global currencies, it rose to 101.12, the highest since March 2020. A higher U.S. dollar brings lower commodity prices. Also, a higher U.S. dollar lowers the prices the U.S. pays for imported goods. WTI crude oil price fell to 102.07 a barrel on concerns over global demand. Also, concerns remain about Europe banning Russian oil. U.S. weekly crude oil production rose to 11.9 million barrels per day, the highest in about 2 years. Importantly, the U.S. is exporting oil at a record level. The positive about exports is they bring U.S. jobs and profits. The negative is they bring higher oil prices to U.S. consumers due to the oil does not stay in the country. The U.S. weekly oil rig count rose to 549, and the slow rise is bringing tight supply and higher prices. Higher prices brings more production and oil exports. Scrap steel number 1 HMS price was steady at $5.10 a gross ton on good demand, but May prices will be down. The higher U.S. dollar is reducing U.S. scrap exports and could bring scrap imports. Hot rolled coil steel price fell to $73.75 per hundredweight, which is $14.75 a ton. This was on good demand, lower priced imports, and May scrap prices being down. Copper price fell to $4.58 a pound, the lowest in a month. This was on demand concerns in China, but the long-term forecast remains strong. Aluminum price fell to $1.56 a pound, which is $34.38 a metric ton, close to a 2-month low. Chinese aluminum imports were down 71% in Q1, and their exports were up 26.7%. The world is rushing to replace Russia's approximately 6% of global aluminum production. China Q1 economic growth was 4.8% versus last year, but there could be a possible major drop in Q2 due to COVID lockdowns. This puts downward pressure on global commodity prices. Canadian March annual inflation rose to 6.7%, the highest since January 1991, over 30 years ago. This was on surging energy, housing, food, and transportation prices. U.S. 30-year mortgage rates rose to 5.11%, the highest since 2010, 12 years ago. This will slow housing and consumer spending, which will help slow inflation. U.S. April S&P Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index increased to 59.7 with the strongest factory growth in 7 months. This was on increased production and stronger demand, but prices were up at a record amount. U.S. March housing starts. They rose to 1.79 million annualized, the highest since June 2006. Soaring mortgage rates and higher home prices will slow starts. Wall Street's Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 640 points to 33,811, and high inflation is now bringing higher interest rates, which will probably be 0.5% increase in May. Tarp system and tarp parts are for sale at Bentley, Pioneer, Mountain Tarp, Rollright, Donovan, and more. Tarps, arms, motors, cylinders, and more for your Galbraith roll-off truck, American, Galbraith, or Palfinger roll-off truck. Order at Bentley's website or call 734-722-8100. As always, feel free to call or email me with any questions, and we hope all have a safe and profitable week.